Good morning. I hope you had a nice long weekend. Before we get started on our last unit, Unit 6, I wanted to take a minute to talk about retakes. Test number 2 that you took last week had two standards, area and volume, so you got two separate grades. If you wanted to do a retake of one standard or both standards, you need to complete the retake request, and that is in the class material folder. If you wanted to review your test or do a study session, you could do that during office hours or contact me to see if we could make an appointment. The project, most people did really well on the project, but a few did not. If you wanted to improve your grade on the project, you can do it again. You use the same guidelines as before, but instead of 24 blocks, this time it would be for 36 blocks, and you would need to make an appointment to present your retake. If your whole group wants to work together to redo the project, they may, or you can take it on as an individual if your group doesn't want to work together. And now, on to Unit 6. This unit is about statistics. And statistics is the study of collecting, organizing, and analyzing data. So in this unit, we're going to be collecting, for example, taking a survey. We're going to be organizing, for example, that could be a dot plot, and analyzing data, for example, using the mean, the median, and the mode. For this unit, you're going to want to have a calculator. If you don't have a separate one, you can always use the one on your computer, but calculating mean, and as we get into even other calculations like MAD, it's not something that you want to do on your own. Even I reach for a calculator. Our objective is to be able to explain the mean, median, and mode and what they tell us about a data set. And today we're going to focus on the mean, so being able to determine the mean of a data set. So data set just means a set of data, and many data sets are very large, and it's helpful to summarize the data. So this isn't a particularly large one, but it's larger than most of the ones we work with in class. This happens to be some math map scores. So looking at all those scores, does anything jump out at you? It's hard because there are so many numbers, it's hard to make sense of them. If we know that the mean is 22.3, that helps us to understand these numbers. It helps us to understand that the average or the typical value is 22.3. So the mean is a summary. Okay? We're going to be summarizing with measures of central tendency. When you summarize data, you take the average or the typical value or the center or the middle of the data or the most common values. Mean is the average or an equal share or leveling. Median is the middle value, and it's important that it's the middle value when the numbers are in order. And mode is the value or values that occur most often. We're going to be working with all three of those, but today we're going to focus on the mean. Okay, suppose that you asked 5 sixth graders how many pets each had. The responses were 2, 6, 2, 4, and 1, and we've represented that with some cubes. What if they shared the pets so that they all had the same amount? Well, we could level the cubes into 5 equal stacks of 3. And when we rearrange those blocks, we could see that if they shared them equally, they would each have 3 pets. There's a website where you can stack some cubes and try this yourself. So if you wanted to go back and try doing the cubes and try rearranging them, you could just go to this website and you could try this out on your own. Okay, the blocks modeled one way to find the mean by leveling the blocks to create equal shares, but we could also calculate the mean. To calculate, you add all the number of pets, then divide by the number of people. So in this case, that's 2 plus 6 plus 2 plus 4 plus 1 equals 15. So we take 15 and divide by 5, and we get 3. Since most of us don't have cubes handy all the time or even squares handy, calculation is a better way for most of us to find the mean, but working with the cubes helps you to be able to picture what the mean's really doing and what it's really telling us. It's showing us if everything was equal, if everything was level, what would the value be? Okay, let's try something just a little harder. The numbers of pockets in the clothes worn by 4 students today are 4, 1, 3, and 6. Matthias produces the following cube representation and attempts to level the cubes. He makes stacks of 3, 3, 3, and 5 cubes. Now what should he do? There are 2 extra cubes. Here's our 4 stacks of 3, but we've got 2 extra. What could we do with those last 2 cubes? How could we spread them out evenly? Some of you may already be thinking of getting out a knife and cutting up the cubes, but we could solve it with a method that we just talked about, dividing them all and adding them all up and then dividing. So if we add 4 plus 1 plus 3 plus 6, we get 14. And 14 divided by 4 is 3.5 or 3.5. So calculating, we can see that it's 3.5. If you think about it, if we had 2 cubes on 4 columns, we'd have to cut each cube in half in order to have 4 pieces. But that can be a little harder, and not everything works out to be a nice round number, so sometimes the cubes are difficult when it's not a nice round number. Let's work through some examples. Example 1, suppose some students each had some Jolly Rancher candies. What is the mean or the average number of candies? Try it on your own and then check your answer. So I'm going to let you work the 2 examples on your own. Okay, once you work those 2 examples, check to make sure they're correct. Then you're on to your independent practice. In your independent practice, first you do the exit ticket. If you miss one of the questions, try it again. The form can be edited unlike a test, so you can go back and try again if you missed it. Once you finish the exit ticket, you've been assigned calculating the mean in Khan Academy. After that, you have a choice of some textbook practice. You can either choose the easy or the harder. You're going to work the problems in your notebook and then put them in the Google form to check them and to receive credit so that we know that you have done them. So if you choose the easy problems, you would enter them on this form, and if you choose the harder problems, you would do them on this form. Each set, the easy and the harder, have 2 pages. The easy 1 and 2, and the harder 1 and 2. So during our class session, I'll be hanging out in Google Meets. If you have problems with calculating the mean, you can check in with me. But calculating the mean is pretty straightforward. It's adding up all the values and then dividing by how many values that you have.